Our first intermission brings you Opera News on the air, the radio edition of the Metropolitan Opera Guild's magazine, Opera News. Boris Golddovsky is in his customary place at the piano, and our two guests are Bidu Sayao and Cesare Valetti. Miss Sayao, one of the most vividly and affectionately remembered Manons, made her debut in this role at the Metropolitan in February 1937. The opera was also her farewell performance in 1953. Olin Downs, writing of her debut in the New York Times, said that she triumphed as a Manon should by manners, youth, and charm, and secondly, by the way in which the voice became the vehicle of dramatic expression. And it is not likely that any of us who had the privilege of hearing Miss Sayao will ever forget the artistry and the musical elegance inherent in all of her many portrayals. Tenor Cesare Valetti, who came to this theater from La Scala, made his Metropolitan debut in 1953 in the tremendously exacting part of Don Ottavio in Mozart's Don Giovanni. On the occasion, J. Harrison wrote that Mr. Valetti is a discovery of major significance and possesses a voice of exquisite color and refinement. His bel canto style has been evident in every role he sings, De Grieux, Almaviva, Ernesto and Don Pasquale, Werther, and so many others. And now, Mr. Golddovsky, will you please take over?
Thank you, Mr. Cross. In the year 1731, a novel appeared in France, the story of the Chevalier de Grieux and Manon Lescaut by Abbé Prévost. It was eventually set to music by no less than 5 composers, 2 of whom, Massenet and Puccini, produced masterworks of lasting merit. Now, why should so many musicians have gone to this one book? What special attraction, I wonder, did this story hold for them?
The attraction, Mr. Golddovsky, of a glamorous woman, a woman who experienced the best and the worst in life.
Yes, Manon was glamorous, Miss Sayao, and highly changeable. At one moment, she would be riding the crest of the wave. Not long after, she would be engulfed. It's natural that any musician with imagination should want to build an opera around Manon. But actually, in the book, it's de Grieux who stands at the center of the story.
And you'll remember, Mr. Golddovsky, that in the book, de Grieux tells his story in the first person. It's the unhappy narrative of his life, a life that has been enchanted and ruined by Manon. From the very beginning, de Grieux is ruled by this girl. She dominates him completely from the very first moment they meet.
But, Mr. Valetti, when they first meet, Manon is only 15 years old, and it is de Grieux who persuades her to elope with him to Paris.
Come, Mr. Golddovsky, you know better than that. On the surface, it may appear that de Grieux has taken the initiative, and yet always the circumstances are shaped by Manon. Don't you agree with me, Miss Sayao?
Yes. I'm afraid there is no doubt that Manon always arranges things to suit her whims.
Tell me, Miss Sayao, in your opinion, what is the most essential feature of Manon's character?
She is constant only in one thing, her impulsiveness. Otherwise, Manon is a complicated girl, Mr. Golddovsky. But she is ruled mostly by her love of pleasure.
Oh, yes. Pleasure, luxury, and elegance, which were so much the essence of 18th century France.
Manon belongs to 18th century Paris. And how wonderfully Massenet has captured this atmosphere. What can be more Parisian than the fanfare at the opening of the opera?
It's the call of gaiety and pleasure, the mainspring of Manon's life.
And this same fanfare is heard again in the third act, when Manon steps out of her sedan chair at Cours la Reine, resplendent in silks and jewels, dazzling everybody, for she has become the most celebrated courtesan in Paris.
She's the uncrowned queen, and her subjects are the dancers, actresses, shopkeepers, characters who roam the promenade ground of a great city. They're all waiting at their tables in the outdoor cafe to greet Manon like royalty. There's a little orchestra on the stage playing a minuet, and for me, this music strikes the perfect note of the Paris of long ago.
The atmosphere comes alive, but not only the atmosphere. the drama too. For Massenet understood all the changes in Manon, and he knew how to put them into his music. At first, she is a very young girl on her way to a convent, obsessed by the life around her.
And how tenderly the music portrays the feeling of a young girl away from home for the first time.
But she doesn't stay in this mood for long. Manon keeps moving from one emotional state to another, changing like a chameleon. And I imagine, Miss Sayao, that the special fascination of this part, as Massenet has written it, must be this endless variety of acting.
And vocal color to match the changing moods.
Yes, Manon was volatile, all right, just as Des Grieux was constant. And Massenet used this contrast between them as the basis of his music. Most of the melodies for Manon keep shifting from one moment to the next. But two unchanging motifs follow Des Grieux throughout the opera. One of them, poised, noble, serene, first heard when he enters the courtyard at Amiens. And the other is passionate, the love theme, Des Grieux's boundless devotion to Manon.
Both these motives tell us that here is a man who can be trusted to the end. Like Des Grieux himself, that love motive is constant. In fact, there is only one place in the opera where it changes after Manon has deserted Des Grieux and she comes back to him at the church of Saint-Sulpice. Des Grieux, disillusioned, has turned from the world. He's about to take his vows as an abbé, but even in the shadow of the altar, Manon tries to rekindle his love. As he rejects her, as he calls her faithless, treacherous, the love theme breaks into splinters.
But then, in that magical moment when Manon, overcome by real sorrow, cries, "Give me back my love," this same theme glows with volcanic passion.
And Des Grieux surrenders.
What marvelous persuasion in the orchestra, seductive and voluptuous.
And in the voice as well. This is Manon, woman of the world, exercising her charms to the hilt, alluring, sensuous, devastating. And what a contrast to the Manon who is making the miserable journey from Paris to Le Havre as a common prisoner. She's on her way to Louisiana, where so many convicts were shipped from France.
But she never gets there. On the road to Le Havre, she looks up at the stars. Even in her dying moment, after all the consequences she has suffered for her pleasure-loving life, she thinks of diamonds. Oh, le beau diamant. Tu vois, je suis encore coquette. Oh, the beautiful diamond. You see, I am still a coquette.
Actually, Miss Sayao, how much real love enters into this tragedy on Manon's side? Do you believe that her feelings ever go deeper than wanting to be admired, having her own way, arousing desire in others?
If you are talking about romantic love, Mr. Golddovsky, not much. But when all Paris is at her feet, the gentleman especially, she wants to return to Des Grieux. I think she is very confident until she enters the convent. The silence frightens her, and she is afraid that her charms will not work in the religious atmosphere. Think of those wonderful spoken lines when she waits for Des Grieux at Saint-Sulpice and wonders if he has changed. Ces murs silencieux, cet air froid qu'on respire, pourvu que tout cela n'ait pas changé son cœur, devenu sans pitié pour une folle erreur, pourvu qu'il n'ait pas appris à maudire.
What about passion? She has real passion in this same scene when she lights up the old flame with des grieux and sings N'est-ce plus ma main que ta main caresse?
Is it not my hand in yours, like long ago?
Another emotion that troubles Manon is remorse. When they are living together in Paris, she finds out that des Grieux is going to be kidnapped. Her first impulse is, I must warn him. But she doesn't, because she has found a richer man to take his place, de Bretigny.
I know, but she does feel sorry. Remembering her joy with des Grieux, she sings a sad farewell to the little table, where they used to drink from the same cup and look to each other's eyes. Adieu, notre petite table. Un même verre était le nôtre. Chacun de nous, quand il buvait, il cherchait les lèvres de l'autre. Oh, pauvre ami, comme il m'aimait. Adieu, notre petite table. Adieu.
It seems to me that Manon can also feel gratitude and, if not real love, at least a deep affection. In the last act, when she is dying and tells des Grieux how much she has wronged him, can any music be more touching? Yes, Manon has many moods, just as des Grieux, who adores her, has only one, fidelity.
I wouldn't call fidelity a mood, Mr. Valetti. It's more a state of mind. And I think you will admit that des Grieux does vary in his reactions. Sometimes he's just upset or convulsed, but a good deal of the time his music has great poetic charm, don't you think so?
It certainly has poetry, Mr. Golddovsky, but he can be also shattered by terrific emotions, especially in that scene at Saint-Sulpice when he tries so desperately to drive away all memory of Manon.
In one of the most moving of tenor solos, Ah, fuyez, douce image.
But even here, we haven't finished with the emotions that torment des Grieux. His money evaporates, he is reduced to living by his wits, and he tries his hand at gambling in order to gratify the luxury-loving Manon. He despises this sort of thing. He feels that degradation is closing in on him, and in the gambling scene, he sings a dramatic phrase like a fate motive. Manon, you sphinx, you siren, how I adore you, and how I hate you. Des Grieux may be constant and faithful, but he's never without fire of his own. And I must say that in the last scene of the opera, it is he, not Manon, who kindles the real emotion. When that poor girl is dying, he tries to revive her, recalling the past when they were both so happy. And what does he whisper to her? What does he sing?
That music from Saint-Sulpice, where once upon a time Manon won back the heart of des Grieux.
Only now it is des Grieux himself who sings, Is it not my hand in yours, like long ago? As he tries to tell Manon they can now be happy forever, willing her to live.
Manon listens. She is ill, dressed in rags, dying. When she hears this music, she seems to revive. She joins in the melody with the Grieux, only to be cut short by death.
We cannot challenge destiny. And Manon, who wanted so much to live among the stars, has finally crashed to earth.
Yes, in Manon's dying words, et c'est là l'histoire de Manon Lescaut.
Thank you, Mr. Golddovsky, Miss Sayao, and Mr. Valetti. And now, before we review the immediate story of the second act of Manon, we are going to participate in a surprise party on stage. In just a moment, you will hear Mr. Lauder Greenway, the chairman of the board of the Metropolitan Opera Association. The house lights have been turned out. Here is Mr. Greenway.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the year 1904, the Metropolitan staged a performance of Golldovsky. That performance was attended by a young lady who came in late. In fact, she came in very late. She missed all the opera but the last act. She was busy acting herself in Merely Marianne at the Madison Square Theater nearby. Now that lady is standing next to me. She was then known as Eleanor Robson. We know her as our dear Mrs. August Belmont. The First Lady of Opera in the United States. And perhaps the world, who knows? Now, I find that Mrs. Belmont joined the opera board in 1933. She then organized the Guild in 1935. Those were the periods of utmost depression. And look what the Guild has proved to be today, and how the association has gone from one triumph to another. 55 years since 1904 is a long time. But I'm sure it's not long to Mrs. Belmont, who has given such love and thought to our organization and to opera in the United States. We must not forget also that as recently as 1952, she organized the National Council of the Opera Association to appreciate what the problems of opera in general are throughout the nation. Now, I could talk all through the rest of Manon, I'm sure you'd love that, Acts 2, 3, and 4, telling you what this lady has done for us. But I'm not going to. I'm simply going to say many happy returns, Mrs. Belmont, on the occasion of your 80th birthday, and may you have many, many more. And I'm not being entirely unselfish when I say that. Mr. Bing, our general manager, now will speak to you.
Mrs. Belmont, ladies and gentlemen, whatever I could add must come as an anticlimax. But I hope, Mrs. Belmont, you will permit me one remark. I was rather shocked to hear that you were late for that Götterdämmerung in 1904. But to clear your record, I may add that in the 10 years that I have now had the privilege and pleasure of working with you, you were never late. Not only not for any performance, but even less on the many occasions when you were called to the Metropolitan's rescue. So I know I'm speaking for everyone who works in this house if I express the hope that in years to come you may grace many more performances with your presence. And on behalf of all of us, again, a very happy birthday.
I don't know what to say. Of course, when you're deeply touched, tears are very close and words are very far away. But I do thank you all, and I realize, of course, that these years that have been mentioned to you have a terrific importance. For myself, those accumulated years make me feel as if I'm Grandma Moses' older sister. But any one of you could be up on this stage receiving this applause if you will work hard and loyally for 26 years and become 80. But I now want to thank you, the audiences, the subscribers who fill this house, because you mean the lifeblood of this organization. I want to thank, too, our friend and sponsor, the Texas Company, who sends these broadcasts throughout the nation that's hungry for great music. I'd like to thank every one of the radio listeners for what they did for us with encouragement and money and faith during the dark days. I want to thank, with heartfelt gratitude, Mr. Bing for the brilliant leadership he's giving to this company. And with the whole heart, I also want to thank this great, great company, because it seems to me that these performances are like a beacon shedding joy and beauty in a troubled world. We need the Metropolitan Opera, and the Metropolitan Opera, remember, needs us. Thank you again and again for what you've done for my 80th birthday.
I'd like to add, if I may, my humble personal congratulations to Mrs. Belmont, and in doing so, I'm sure I too am including those of our listeners who have known this gracious lady over these broadcasts through the years.